significant. All right, I'd like to call it 6 o'clock. We'd like to call this meeting to order. At this point, to roll call, please.
Mr. Butler?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Brown? Here. Mr. Helmut?
Here.
Mr. Eilers?
Here.
Mr. Stannis?
Here.
Webster is here. Mr. Ward?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. And if everyone will stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can now move on to the approval of the agenda. I'd like to say thanks for correcting the public comments. So that's a little more open and clear. So, but
Anybody have any comments or changes or? No.
Move to approve.
Second. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, on the approval of the minutes from last week, or last month, of November 21st, 2023, page 1. Are there any comments, changes? No, moving on to page 2. None. Page 3. All right, hearing no changes or amendments to them, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you very much. Moves approved. All right, at this point, we'll move on to the public comment period. I'll just read here. The planning commission requests that the speakers respect that everybody has 3 minutes if you wish to come up and speak. Unless you're speaking on behalf of the group, you'll have 5 minutes. So you have, we'll keep track of the time here. And this is not a question and answer session, so if you get up and speak, it'd be nice if things that have stayed on point and respectful and you know, to the agenda of the meeting here. But if you have other things that are relative to the community, I mean, this would be the time as well. So it's like it says here, it's an opportunity to voice your thoughts with the planning commission. So at this point, I guess what we can do is start with well, the first row, Cindy. We'll go on to the second row. If anybody would like to come up, and if you come up, just state your name and your address.
Lance Donald, reserve 24-2 Lakeshore Drive, Saugatuck. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Lake Michigan Shore Association. I'm a board member now for 45 years. I look at it. Our association goes from about the washout, we blend with Douglas, and we go all the way down to Clement. So we have basically the southern tier. And first of all, I want to say thank you very much. I'm a former planning commissioner here on the township, and I think you've done can you hear me okay? Yeah. I think you've done an excellent job in terms of the thoughtfulness of the process, of using the system, transparency. I've been impressed. Thank you. I'd like to speak about a particular issue, so if that's okay. I see you have a second level of comment. So my issue that I wanted to talk about, which our association is very interested in, is the whole issue of accessory dwelling units. We support them. We support this for a number of reasons in all of the township zones, but in particular for the lakeshore. And the reason for that is basically threefold. First, they've been there historically for years. In some cases, I know one that's been there for 100 years. So you already got them. So the question is, how do you regulate? And what can you do? And in fact, when I was in the planning commission, we had what I consider to have been a model ordinance that was drafted and made through here unanimously. It got held up at the township board level for a number of reasons for you. But they are already here. We have, by my count, at least 10 of them here. And they then go down to PNGs, but of course, it's not your purview. We believe they are a strong incentive to preserve existing historic housing stock, particularly along the lakeshore, where we've seen a proliferation of nice homes, but not the kinds of homes that folks have been used to over the years. And I think that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. You're talking to a guy who's pretty old and has been there for 71 years in the same location. So I have maybe biased. They also provide generational stability. A number of people are aging. We have generational cottages still in the area. My home, for instance, was built by my parents, where I came to when I was a year old. It's not a unique story. So, the regulations, how you do it, are certainly very critical, important. In Michigan, we have at least 6 municipalities that have them. They've done a good job with them. Cape Cod, which I use as an exemplar, has at least 10 communities do them, as does Pacific Northwest, San Juan Islands. So I think you would be in good company by an innovation by creating them. And by the way, if you aren't aware of it, Saugatuck, the city of Saugatuck, which was at one time the village of Saugatuck, is part of this township. And the city of the village of Douglas, which at one time was a village within this township, all have them. So, good luck, thank you. I'd be glad to answer questions, but that's not part of the process. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Vanderbeek, and I'm representing myself, but I am founder and member of the Riverwood Council. And but I don't need 5 minutes. I'm just going. I'm here just to express gratitude to the hard work you guys all put into this new zoning idea. I think a lot of what's been done is just trying to predict what people might get upset in about 5 to 10 years down the road. And I think so far what I've seen, it seems pretty reasonable what you've done. You brought in the community, you brought in real locals, brought in, you did a lot of thinking and work on these new ordinances that are being proposed. And I'm speaking of support. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention when I addressed 62 on that report. I own a few properties around here, some are undeveloped too. I understand there's some concerns about restrictions. And it seems to me like there's some restrictions for additional property rights too. So I appreciate what's been done there and making sure that what I understand to be an expanded tree protection zone, which is what we already had from 2006 to 7 or 8, somewhere in there. We added these tree protection zones that help protect some of the woods that you see and when you drive by our great town on the highway, when you drive through Blue Star, some of those areas that are being developed, you have to work with you guys to make sure they don't just clear everything right on the road, because the residents like those trees. So I appreciate that. And my understanding is you've just taken this concern and taken it down a couple of other pathways along some creek sides. And I think that's great. I think there's a lot of developers that can work within those restrictions. And there's actually a lot that can be done even more than that with these smaller dwellings going down from 1,000 square feet. From what I could tell, from my perspective as a long-time local and family here, raising kids here, you guys seem to be doing what the community, as majority, wants you to. And I talk and I'm friends with a lot of these people raising kids around here, and that's all I can hear. It seems like maybe there's a little bit of concern about from some smaller minorities, but I love what you guys are doing. Thank you for all the effort.
Row 2? No? Row 3?
New to the area. I have the property at 6199 Oak Avenue, which is now Black Farm Ridge Drive. And my home, my family, and a few other things on the property. And I want to speak up 2 points, one being the ADU, and the second being the tree protection. And coming from Chicago, as many people have come, when you come into town, you realize how special this place is. And a lot of it has to do with this, the tree lined streets that we have, the Mayberry field you get when you go to Douglas and whatnot. I think a lot of that should be protected. I am a developer by trade, and I feel that as a developer, you should be able to work within the guidelines you're given for a great product while preserving the community. We all own the land, but we own the land within a community. We're only here for a certain period of time as stewards of the land that we passed on. And the township, I think, has done a great job in producing the ability to maintain this land, preserve it, the private spaces it has, I think are fantastic. I am behind the ADUs, and it's wonderful. I can't speak to the ADUs on the lakeshore. I don't spend too much time in that area, but in the rural areas, it's a wonderful concept. And again, back to the tree protection. I did everything I could to preserve as many trees as I could on my property. Like several other properties down the valley. And if I have to keep those beautiful trees up, create the canopy, so people have a wonderful experience when driving on those roads, I'm all for it. So,
Thank you. Three, anyone else? No? Four?
Claire Cybersmart, I, own the property at Texas 41, 6398 Blue Star Highway. Talk to you about some things. The present zoning ordinance for land in a 26 acres, section 41, 196, commissions me to this: when developing the property, that I must ensure the attractiveness and the character of the community, the adjoining properties are not to be diminished. I take that seriously. It's in today's order. Here we have two sets of ordinances, the current ones. It's living, it's old school, but it's a living document. It's our present ordinance. Always need to change, correction, stood the test of time. Scrutiny by all residents, young and old. Supported by multiple boards and planning commissions. My left hand is the new replacing ordinance. A set of rules that I feel often are intended to stop growth through regulation. They're driven by urbanist planners. Go look at them. Go look at what they put next to them. Urbanist is city. I must ask, is it the intention of this board, of this commission, to build another city? I think I have to ask that because I see a lot of that in these ordinances. Two very different ordinances, by law. This all new ordinance is not an amendment to the present ordinance to replace the ordinance that we have totally. This new set of documents is also in contrast. This set of documents, this new ordinance, is in contrast with the present Tri-County Master Plan, and is also in conflict with the Coastal Alliance Group and their vision for the township. For 18 years, I own my land. I have pondered over this present ordinance, my zoning district, ruling out offers to sell and stepping back from some of the approved uses. Some of my envisioned ideas required growth in the township before it would enable me to move forward. I had no idea this ordinance was in the works until 3 weeks ago. 2 years I've asked to be on the township email contact list at this township. I've never gotten one thing but tax bills for 18 years. Nothing has arrived in my mailbox. Nothing has come to me in the emails. I asked 2 years ago, and I asked not too long ago. I wanted to know, why am I not finding out about it?
Sorry, that's.
What's that?
That's.
I'm here with the group, please.
Okay.
I'll move.
What's the name of the group?
Cyrus with Saugatuck Township.
Two more minutes.
2 years I've. What I read is very troubling. These changes will affect the lives of every township resident. This board, in their proposed new ordinance, has removed a long list of reasonable approved uses still listed in the present zoning on my property. I'm confused why such a complete change of approval use that is scheduled for my land. 37 acres, almost entirely commercial, as my family can attribute. I have a deep passion to only develop facilities at that location in our community. I believe you, the commissioners, started out on a great vision, but later got a little out of step with some of the people who live here. Let me reference one of the several statements that were made in your township vision before these ordinances came. Many live here, love the township's rural lifestyle, yet access to high-speed internet and major grocery stores are a challenge. You omitted grocery stores now from the new ordinance. The portion was written by our township board. We value our location, its natural beauty, and the rural set atmosphere. Reference is also made that we have a large population of retired residents. Let me add, we also have a large school district. I'd like to give you some of my vision for the property. I hope I don't run out of time.
Yeah, you only got 20 seconds. Send it home. No, you got 20 seconds.
The rear of my portion of my property, I hope to develop a senior community. Some small condos and first-class assisted living center. They blend great together and have very little impact on traffic patterns, services, and neighbors. Not possible under the new ordinance. It states, if licensed, not permitted. Guess what? All senior facilities in Michigan are licensed. Moving north, I have a vision for a grocery store, compatible to all of them. That's the #1 request we get in our store. Not possible under the permitted use. Commission intentionally limited size of the building, so almost nothing can be developed.
Okay,
I'm gonna
sorry.
stay.
That's the 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You have
I'm
5,
sorry. I need a
5
follow-up.
minutes is up. I'm sorry. It's what's fair is.
We have a second public comments. You can finish his comments.
We do have a second comment period at the end of the meeting, which you're more than welcome to come up and finish it. Yeah, you're absolutely.
Whatever you like.
Thank you.
I forgot you wanted to.
Is there anyone else in the board?
$60.51 old road. I just wanted to come tonight because I've never been here. Really just to thank all of you for you put in to change some. And so it's been 3 years in the work. I was part of the community that, part of the committee that they, many suggestions to township about change, and was really impressed to see how many of those actually have worked into the. Yeah. So thank you for your kindness. Really appreciate it. And second, all I wanted, I noted in the minutes from last that Mike had raised the question about what's happening in Active 41 the development up there. But for our neighbors are interested in what's going on up there. So whenever you can let us know. Thank you.
Anyone else in 4? 5?
Nate Shipley, 3542 and 3544. San Diego Saugatuck Township. And some of these, I want to be very supportive. Here's the pushing things through and rushing things through, and frankly, I think that you're doing a wonderful job. I don't think they're being pushed through. I think that things like massive property clearing without any, sorry, wrong. I think massive property clearing is something to stop and look at and say, why are we creating these ordinances, and this is for the very reason. I just want to also say that I have found you all approachable. I do not own a large portion of property in the township. I own a small portion. I think that the majority of people do. I think that a few people own a large portion, and a lot of people own a small portion. And the small people, the small portions come in numbers. And we want to keep our trees we want to work on keeping the proper trees. And work with the fire departments to make sure that those trees are in the right places and so on. Anyway, I just wanted to support you and say thank you, for what you're doing, and I understand it may feel like things are being pushed through, but when you look in my yard, I can now see the highway. I couldn't see the highway just a few weeks ago. The highway is an animal corridor. It's not gone. I know you understand these things, and that's why you're working the way you are. So thank you for your time. One more thing, we want chickens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the last row? No? We got one. Oh, we got one, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, here's from my way of putting on basic history of Saugatuck Township. $50 here. Mr. Chairman, Riley and members of the commission. I've got some thoughts on zoning ordinance pertaining to changes proposed that are under review currently by the zoning board of appeals regarding the Saugatuck Coastal Alliance appeal. North Shore Development in the township. So I gave you this letter to inform you that it's a request to actually remove part of the proposed ordinance, except to review dealing with the water from the non-defined. I don't know if those changes are made intentionally or not. I know I have a planning board field member for many years in the township, so the planning commission, practicing some municipal law in the area. It's part of major project practice. When you have a ordinance section that is under review by the zoning board of appeals and interpreted completion by the planning commission back in 2018, it's best to leave that alone. It encumbers the independence of the CDA, raises questions about the commission not write the prior ordinance adequately. Most lawyers are aware of the problems that are associated with many of the ordinances. What I'm actually asking is to remove this waterfront ordinance proposed in section 720E. That's the proposal. And that you will remain in place existing ordinance 9 section H 49 and section H. And that deals with the question of an initial channel or a eventually channel or canal or channel the basin be excavated to increase water flow. That's the language that the DPA needs to look at and interpret. So when you propose a change, probably not intentionally, but I'm probably with approval of the DBA, township attorney, we just raised it. So please consider that. I'd like to do that before the proposed ordinance goes out for a public hearing. Feel free to ask me some questions about it at your time. It's about 3 minutes right there. Thank you. Just had one, just kind of a reference point. I had a real difficult time trying to reference the changes to the ordinance as opposed to before. You need a guide for people to say, okay, section 720 was previously 40 each for the. It's really cumbersome to have the reference to the next activity if you would. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't hear roll call. No, that's, I'm just an old guy, you know, all right, you know. My name is Gina Dowchick. I live at 6045 133rd. Just about the zoning at, exit 41. Progress is progress. I like what I hear about, retirement, housing. It's a quality of life issue. When I hear about truck stops, when I hear about, additional pot shops, adult entertainment, you know, again, as a quality of life issue, when we see the different magazines, the different ratings, Saugatuck is always highly rated. It's a place to live, place to retire, place to vacation. And again, as you know, we have some light within our community, and I hope whatever your decisions are, you keep Saugatuck a great place and you keep us up, because you're all part of it. I don't think you're all moving out. So, you know, just want to work on your conscience a little bit. But as a board, you've done a great job, even with the old applicant and 133rd meteor crater over there. You know, it looks a heck of a lot better. So thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom?
John Castro?
Yes. Yeah, hello, everybody. I couldn't make it up there. Just wanted to say, John Castro, 6907 Wiley Road. Just want to say thanks to all your effort in getting the zoning code, but just reinforce my, I guess, the ADU and duplex dwelling for zoning district 4. Just give my backing for that per my survey response. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom? Nope.
All right. So there's no more public comment. I will close the public comment period. We will move on to old business. Ordinance. At this point, I know we're nearing the end of somewhat of this review process, and I'd like to thank the commissioners for all the work. I think this is meeting number 11 or 12 that we've been discussing this, and so there's been a lot of work that's put into this, not even counting the countless the committee meetings and yeah, it's been a lot of work. And I don't know, John, did we spend a year and a half?
2 years close. We started doing COVID with the advisory committees meeting every month. So it's been
So it's been a long process and a lot of thought has been put into this, and I appreciate everyone's time. So thank you. But at this point, so we're kind of coming down to the nitty gritty and some of the last things. And I know, Lene, you had put out a survey, which a number of people have responded to. And I know, I'm sure we've all read through those. And there was, I mean, a lot of them repeated, you know, we're kind of along the same tone. And, you know, there were a few new things that came up, but I guess what I would start with, at least on the comment period, for the responses, maybe I'll start with Mike, and why don't, I mean, if there's ones that maybe stood out to you that maybe we should talk to, I don't want to go through all of them, but maybe if there's ones that you thought were important that we should bring up tonight, I kind of like to pull those out so that we can touch base on those during the meeting. Mike, did you? Sure. Have any?
Yeah, I got here at least on question 3, housing density should match for municipal utilities for the I think that we need to look a little more broadly, say something like where utilities can easily be extended, assuming the developer is willing to contribute to that. I think it's- So instead of restricting housing to what's there, what can be reasonably extended, gives existing.
Sorry, which one was that? The number 3 on the left?
Three. Yep.
Oh, you're talking question 3. I was talking more regarding the responses.
Oh, okay,
So
all right.
if there was anything that jumped out at you that.
Yeah. No specific area, but I noticed that there's comments. And I think we need to be clear about the difference between affordable housing and attainable housing. All of the work that we've done for the last few months, especially with the housing group, has been about attainable housing, meaning reasonably affordable housing, whether it's single family, multifamily. Affordable housing is a separate category of housing, government subsidized. I think that everything we've been addressing the last year or so has been about attainable housing, making housing options that are reasonably affordable for nobody in the lower. Well, so that exactly defines what those categories are. We need to be clear about those two terms because they're huge interchangeable. Various of that. So I think need to be.
Be defined in the back of the definition you're saying?
Well, yeah, I think we're clear on it, but I think the public is not clear on it. Not their fault. It's two interchangeable terms. It's using.
I hear you say that in your mind, affordable housing equals subsidized housing. And
That's,
we don't. and we're
that's the
not
state
talking
of, that's the state of Michigan. I looked it up. That's what the government.
Is it?
Yep.
We don't stipulate or regulate housing in here and require either attainable, affordable, or any price point. I'm not sure that we need to define it because we don't
I think we need.
call it out as a use, but I think in terms of clarifying the philosophy.
You can talk about affordable housing. That's a whole different housing category. You know, and, helping to enable attainable housing, which I think working with the East Neighborhood has been about having ordinances that support getting reasonably lower prices. Available to.
Well, just following up that, let's say consider my, we talk about affordable housing. And while we've been doing this, more mortgages, tripled, where we started, when we started this process, what the mortgage rate was versus, what it is now. And we can only downsize the size of the lot so far. The value of land in Saugatuck Township is still very, very expensive. So I don't want people to, while we were making movements to make it easier to build a home in Saugatuck Township, not make it harder. The market is working against them for what people can afford in the township. And so that's the mortgage rate, the value of land, that's not something we can control at all. That was my opinion.
Well, I didn't approach my review this way though.
Oh, sorry.
I have to reserve my comments for later as we go through some of the tables and some of the other statements in here. And as if we were trying to really hone in, taking this comment, these were important comments, but I just look at it as a different method as I went back to the ordinance.
I was trying to get into where we could pull it and then as we discuss everything else.
I'm gonna have to reserve right at this time. I am on, it was a very well-informed survey as we look at what we're trying to do. So, there's nothing specific.
What I kind of pulled out of it was any concerns with short-term rentals and I think I got the feeling that people like the ADUs out of here. So a bit of concern with, the short-term rentals and maybe with the ADUs that. And I think we spoke to this, but requiring someone to, there to be a permanent resident on site. One of the interesting, that was the main thing that one that kind of jumped out at me. There was one that was on the sky principles that I thought maybe we should think about. There was the dark sky principles that had some wording in there that almost sounded like maybe it was pulled from. Like I said, I think it stated where it was pulled from, but some engineering society that maybe it would make sense if we tied that in. I don't know if you looked at that or not. But those were the main ones that I saw was really, I felt like pro ADU and some concern with the short term. But yeah.
I guess one question I have is if David Jurassic's presentation he gave last month is available still, that the public can see it, because I feel like some of the comments may illustrate that some people just don't understand what the changes are from the existing ordinance. And it was read some things because some of the statements here just simply aren't true. They're not in the new ordinance.
I believe that presentation is on the website. It's on the township.
Yeah,
website.
I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, that
So,
has been available.
Just so everybody knows, that is there. There was a presentation made about what changes were done for updated.
But but I think what I saw a lot of comments on is that people are looking at what changed. So show me what it was versus what the new one is. Really not a tool we have to compare that. So that was a
Right.
short
That presentation does help.
Yeah, that presentation.
With regard to the short-term rental, there are, I don't know what to call laws, I guess, in place that govern those right now, as far as inspections, the fire department involvement, fees. So I don't know that we don't really specifically address it because we already have things in place.
Yeah, we have a general law ordinance, that was adopted by the township board. That ordinance parallels the ordinances that the city of Saugatuck and Douglas have for rentals, because we're a tri-community and often those municipal boundaries are, people aren't always aware of those, and we want it to be consistent across the board. So that is the document that governs, I mean, for example, we have some maximum number of beds, but that can be exceeded based on the house itself and how many bedrooms, and so that occupancy can change. We have some parking requirements. We have requirements for a local point of contact. It's a 3-year permit, if I'm not mistaken. Fire extinguisher, all of those safety items are reviewed by the fire district. If this were to be adopted with the ADUs, I believe we'd want to make sure that there is a provision, I believe the planning commission, and we've talked about this, that in terms of rental, that only one rental permit per parcel. So it's either the principal house or the accessory dwelling unit that would have a rental permit, because there could be that balance, or I think some of the survey responses speak to that need, right? Like there's a concern about seasonal rentals, but if we're also introducing ADUs that could be rented, now are we increasing the supply of those, and could that cause some challenges given these comments. So that was one of those techniques that you all had talked about to make sure that there are now 2 rental permits on a property when maybe before there was 1.
And also, did we not put in there that has ADU that we have to have a principal resident, have to be private? I thought that was also a comment in here. That we added that in there, that it is.
The principal dwelling or the accessory dwelling unit shall be owner occupied.
Correct.
Only 1 rental permit shall be issued for a lot with 1 principal dwelling and 1 ADU. I think one of the challenges, I think we want to make sure we have a good definition there for owner occupied.
I'm skipping this, Susanna.
No, I have nothing.
Oh, I didn't, okay, yeah. First of all, just to the housing issue, which I didn't see that much in the survey, but the advisory committee to this body was called Attainable Housing, expertly chaired by Commissioner Webster. And then the economic development advisory, if you were on chair of, one of our goals was senior housing. So I think that's good. Noted. In terms of just the survey, I was very pleased to see support for ADUs in all residential districts. That seems to come through. And that's the on the short-term rental issue, there was a suggestion made that short-term rental require off-street parking, which is a sound idea. I was also happy to see more than a few comments supporting the 600 square foot minimum for principal dwellings, which is before us. And you mentioned the dark sky, thank you. And then let's see. There were also comments about allowing 2-family dwellings in more residential districts, which I'm not sure where we're at right now in this ordinance, but I'd like to hear us discuss that more. Let's see, that's about single 2-family dwelling. Yeah, those are the highlights that I felt to bring up from the survey results. And I think what was the when we nearly 203 people responded, which is a pretty high return rate. Thank you for doing this, and I think it's helpful for what we're.
I know this probably was a little unorthodox, but I just felt like it needed to be addressed because there was so much attention.
No, I'm glad you did.
I'm glad that it's, that we all read it and that we know that, we are paying attention to what people are doing when they're coming to say. And that was just a big block of it. So I know there's other comments that they come in, but I think we're going to address those through our just kind of regular process. But anyways, thank you. So then I guess if we move on to our next steps, Monet, what do you?
Okay, with your permission, as you know in the packet, since our last meeting, we had the public open house with the zoning ordinance. At that open house, we collected a lot of comments from participants in the audience. We also have received many written comments to date. We heard comments from you as planning commissioners. So what the zoning consultant David and myself have done is we created a spreadsheet that includes all of the comments we've received. And we identified items that are more policy, I think, discussion for planning commission versus items that are I don't want to say no brainers, but scrivener errors or changes and oversights and things that we know is best practice that are in line with things we've already discussed. So those are included in the spreadsheet for you. We didn't think those needed discussion with the planning commission, but certainly if there are items, feel free to pull them forward for discussion. The other item in your packet is the zoning district comparison chart. So you can see where there are changes proposed from what's existing today in terms of dimensional standards and what is proposed. That is up for discussion in the spreadsheet, so we'll get there. We don't have to do that right away, but we can. And then we have received some comments that aren't on the spreadsheet because the spreadsheet that you have was issued a week ago. So some comments have come in since last week and they're included in a spreadsheet and I have access to it and can screen share it on Zoom if you would like. So it's up to you all how you want to pursue this, but one way could be going through those policy items on the spreadsheet and working through those and working through consensus maybe, like, you know, doing a straw poll for some of these items. We may not all agree on all of them, but you know, we do have to get to a point where we can advance something for public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you all have that, the packet. So the first one, it's alphabetical. So we're starting with accessory dwelling units. I can screen share it too. Okay. So this first one was a comment that there's a 200-foot setback from the waterfront for accessory dwelling units. The commenter thought that was too large. They're recommending that we make it 75 feet from the ordinary high water mark, like we do other structures. Or require it that it be behind the principal structure. I guess from the waterfront, that it be behind the principal structure, which would mean it would be on the road frontage. Thoughts on it?
75 feet is not very far back.
Yes, the waterfront setbacks currently are 75 feet.
We already have it required behind the principal residence, so we already have that. I thought that was already there, so. It would have to be behind it.
Okay. All right, I will put a note there. This might be a comment, a residual comment from a previous. Good.
75.
And make the setback consistent.
Yeah.
I saw 100 feet in our ordinance, but there is a reference somewhere to 200. And I can't remember now where I saw that. I thought it was.
What's the word? Yes. Standard.
Part the reference,
Standard practice. What the setback is, just, yes,
the 200 or the 75?
what is the reasonable setback?
I can't answer the 200, but the 75 is in our current ordinance. So
That means, right?
we debated this quite a bit, that 75 foot back at the left.
Would that be on table 33.40A?
What page?
Page 3.
3.5. Am I looking in the right place?
Correct. The minimum setback 75 across the board.
I think we addressed.
It makes sense that the accessory dwelling unit would be behind the principal.
Correct. And we will make sure that that's consistent at the 75. All right, yeah.
Jake, but since we're on this chart, I had a question at the top, the minimum livable floor area per dwelling unit. I'm just curious why R2, R3, R4 are higher than the others.
This is it, I've got an answer, because we don't allow, right now, we don't allow ADUs in those districts.
But if we did,
If we did, that would have to change. I wrote here, my
Okay.
personal copy, calibrate if ADUs become allowable.
hopefully they will.
Well,
That would be the third line down.
yeah.
Second
So
one
let's
is,
go to the second one.
Yeah.
Concern about ADUs in A1 and A2, too dense, need to keep where we have utilities. So this was a phone call that I took. This person lives in a rural part, agricultural part of the township. They feel that allowing ADUs would bring in, affordable housing, and there was a concern, that term was used. And they're also concerned about ADUs, meaning more households, so more density, and that there are utilities in the ag areas. So they felt that we shouldn't allow ADUs in that part of the country. Keep it where we have services.
But they're only allowed to have one anyway, so
Yeah.
it's not like,
Yeah.
on a parcel, so it's not gonna be like, you're gonna have 5 of them on.
We don't allow ADUs today. I think they're saying don't allow ADUs.
Right, but the issue with regard to density, that's not going to be an issue
Yeah.
because you're only allowing one on.
Right.
On each parcel.
So if you've got-
Now, if you subdivide, okay, that's a different story, but if you have your parcel is 550 acres, you're only allowed to have one, it's the same parcel. Right?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So the comment from our planning commission is,
I'm not convinced. Not, yeah.
One ADU is gonna be a problem. If we were concerned about the density, we talked more about the lot size. Correct. ADUs are a problem.
ADUs, consider allowing in R2 and R3 with municipal water and sewer only.
Well, my feeling on that is we should allow them in all 4 our residential districts. And I don't think it needs to be tied to sewer and water. Someone has septic in a well for their primary residence. That'll serve your ADU.
Well, again, they would have to have that clearance from the health department, because again, your septic and well, the septic is only associated with so many bathrooms. So now if you're gonna have an ADU and you have an increase in bathroom, that could create a problem with septic. So they would still have to get a health. No, correct.
Right.
Correct.
So R4 includes the lakeshore, it includes our high-risk erosion area. And big portions of R3 are in the critical dune. Is that, I'm just playing devil's advocate, is because the survey results talk about the, high-risk erosion, critical dune areas. Is that something that you all want to talk about with these?
You're gonna have to get it from them or the building.
Right.
It's gonna be addressed at that point, right?
Okay.
Okay.
And it has to be on behind the principal dwelling, so if they don't have room for it, that's a non.
Well, it could be
So-
attached to the house as well. Could be
It
attached.
could, or it could be above the garage, I understand that, but if they still don't have room for it. whether it's attached to the house or not, if you don't have enough room for a setback, again, is gonna be an issue. That you might have other things that are going to preclude them to add an ADU into these particular areas. Because of the size of the parcel.
Is that a consensus then? So all the residential districts, and then probably add a sentence in here about health department permitting, you know, Eagle and all of that. We know that needs to be done anyway, but it's good to put in here.
So we're good with ADUs and all 400. And is that, are we keeping it in the 2 ags too? Yes.
Yes, just the previous one you said.
Right, okay.
Does that feel?
Okay, so then on table 3.40, all those minimal 4,
Yes.
change to 600.
Yes. I put that table was down 3.4 maybe. Page 3. Thank you. Okay, the boathouses, this was interesting, this was brought up by a resident, it's my understanding from them, and I didn't talk to Eagle directly, that Eagle does not permit boathouses that have a roof over the navigable inland water. So the way that a boathouse would have to be constructed would be to excavate the shore, which conflicts with our new the shoreland language that was brought up earlier. So we need to decide, do we want to allow boathouses?
Where's that shoreline?
Shoreline is in 720. 7.20 paragraph B.
We cannot have both.
Yeah. It's not.
Yeah,
And possibly the advice from the attorney might.
maybe we do.
That's something that, we should look at when the litigation concerning the coastal alliance is concluded, because anything we do there could have an impact on that. And I don't want to take any action here that affects what was done by a prior planning commission and township board. And they've been to the Supreme Court once, and there's nothing that's going to stop them from going again. So I would prefer to I see it's an issue, but I think that we can only address that after that matter is concluded. Otherwise, one or other side will say you're playing to one side or the other. I don't want to get up in that middle.
So what is the way to address?
To make sure that we address it within 1 year. And so in other words, table it that we are going to consider this issue, and we see it's an issue. But I can't see taking any action at this time.
Or they prohibited for a year?
Yes.
But this language, the revised language has been vetted by our,
I understand, but.
and the VBA issue is about standing, not a bound law.
No, but if they get to standing, then the rest of it is in play. So, and what the former ordinance says is actually fairly clear. I don't want to make any comments on how the board arrived at whatever decisions they made prior to us being. None of us were
The
involved.
prior one is not very, we were trying to clarify.
If it's possible at this point, we can just say that allowable by state and something to that effect.
Of course, and the other thing too is that with the water level dropping like a stone right now, most of your boathouses have about 2 inches of mud underneath them at this point, because the water level dropped about 20 inches. So, boathouses are going to be real popular for a while.
We can always change it in a year.
We
but
can
it'd just be
always
nice to
have
have some-
houses.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So
So are we removing that number?
I'm hearing we removed boathouses and we add that to a list of things to work on in a year.
Okay, so where is that? In that section, but where's the boathouses?
The boathouses are in accessory buildings, section H20. It's item 10, and I can do a word search as well. And then they're listed in uses as well in a table.
All right, so our recommendation is remove any language associated with boathouses at this time. Is that what we're going to do?
The next one, section 450 CD. Sorry, we're bouncing around. I did this alphabetical and I didn't always have all the numbers. Okay, section 450, this is page 4-6. C1B. So this is a design standard for commercial buildings that says the bottom 4 feet of all building front and side elevations shall be 100% masonry. And the commenter said, and this is going to result in every building looking the same. Would it be better to say a percent of the facade be masonry? And it can be anywhere?
Like getting that tight on regulating and stuff. Keep it more in general guidance.
Okay, so what is your recommendation that how it should be worded then?
Well,
How would you word it then? Bottom 4 feet of the building, front and side elevation shall be.
Oh, percent.
so just a percent of the elevation.
Do you, does our building people, do we understand what that means? To me, that's very foreign, so I'm not.
From, yeah, you typically measure from the ground to where the roof starts and say a certain percent.
So what percentage are you going
I'd love to hear from Ms. From.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. 25%.
That seems like a number we've used in the
I was gonna say 30, but 25.
30.
Okay.
130.
30? You have good backing to go with that number, or were you just picking the number out of the air?
Currently, it is 40. I mean, that's what it currently is. So this was just repeating and not changing it, but I have no problem with allowing people more flexibility in how they want to design their building.
So 30%. So 100%, you put 30 in there?
Yeah.
Okay,
So 30% of the whole facade or 30% of the 4 feet?
30%
Of the facade.
Okay.
And just like the glass of the percentage.
And we measure the 30% after you take out the glass and so the area that's left over, then it's 30% of that. For 30% total with that.
I would assume 30%.
I was too.
Okay.
But you too, we have to make sure that doesn't conflict with the percentage glass. Check on all of this.
percent after that.
So we already say street facing building elevations constructed with an 80% of masonry, wood, or cemented siding. So maybe we don't even need anything else.
Maybe not, and ultimately, I think at the end, it says that the planning commission can approve design,
Yeah.
don't exactly follow those percentages too, so I mean, it's pretty flexible anyway.
so is your recommendation now to strike that?
I think we should strike it. I think they covered it.
Okay.
Okay.
And then when they add number 2 below that, and then 4.5, 2 words is fenestration.
Correct.
It repeats itself again.
Oh, that's been
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is section 720, item 8. This is on page 7-7. Item number 8. There's a request to go back to the original ordinance language. And I met with David today, and he was fine with that, going back to the original language. This provision, and I can read the original, essentially allows the use of a PUD process to vary the standards of this whole section on docks and water frontage. We currently allow that. The person who was reviewing this said, well, it doesn't exactly say that here, the same way it said it in the current ordinance. And when I met with David, he said, well, our PUD section says we can vary things in the ordinance anyway, so it's covered there. So we could go back to the original language. Don't know your feelings on that.
So I'm sorry, what's the original language?
I can read it.
Yes. I look at it.
You know, hard to find things in both documents at this point. Where's the doc? Up there. Okay, the original text, to the extent applicable, this section shall be considered when the township receives a planned unit development application. At the discretion of the township and as allowed by the standards in section 40-779 and the objectives of section 40-780, the requirements of this article may be modified. So I know you're going to ask what 779 is. 779 are the general standards for considering a PUD. You know, be designed harmonious with the community, not change the character. And then 780 are regulations for PUDs.
So if you're gonna keep that same language, then we would have to refer to a new article within this particular ordinance that parallels what the old said. Correct. Does it make sense that we do that? I mean, that, I mean, no,
Good, keep it.
I think it would be fun. Okay, we know. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it sounds interesting. Okay, now we're moving into lot areas. So perhaps you want to get your table in the packet. Unfortunately, I can't screen cap. These are all comments related to lot sizes. Maybe also look at your zoning map, which you should have. So this comment says, why do we have the smallest lot sizes on Lake Michigan and also in the high risk erosion area? need to increase lot area here. So our high risk erosion is the lake shore, basically south of Douglas. And that area in the new ordinance is called R4. Or I'm sorry, R3. I heard you, Joe. I did. You were right.
I didn't say
But
anything.
I
I'm
had
just
said it
slowly
like
like
that. I
that.
was like, yep, R3. So that is R3. And we do have some R4 in Critical Dune, north of the channel. So as you can see from the comparison chart, what's existing, and what is proposed. So right now, the lake shore is zoned R3. It's continuing to be zoned R3. I think this person was commenting that why is it 20,000?
But it was before,
It was,
and that's only with water, and we've increased it when it was without.
we have, yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly that too, and the width, the frontage didn't change either, I mean, with water. And we increased it without water, so I'm not sure that comment, they may not have understood the difference.
Well, I think so. I think that we've had a few people even email, saying, I think you switched R3 and R4 when they look at the lot sizes. And I think it's because of that, maybe not realizing that today we allow 20. And perhaps they may feel, boy, that's even too small. Is this the opportunity to increase it?
And we increased it by 10,000.
You did.
To 30,000.
And most of that area is without water.
We get. That's 20, that's 30,000 without.
Yes, I don't think so.
Look, from all the ones going down the line, like. Looking the system. Yeah, I don't think right away.
It's just parcels on wide.
No, the local health, the washout, but I mean, they, I don't know, like, parcel next to the church.
Well, that's where.
But like they said, we've already increased 30,000, I think it's going the right.
Is
where it serves.
Yeah.
Wiley Road itself, not
Yeah.
the lake.
that consensus?
Without it is without, it's without sanitary or water, correct? And nobody is served by, municipal sanitary guide.
No, I think it's only water.
Right, but I don't think that are. It slows down that part of it.
It says without public water and sewer.
If I go back to if you don't have sanitary and water, servicing your site, and maybe we could research this. This is just a number that I have in my head that I've always thought as being the size to service a lot that requires a septic and a well is 1 acre.
Yeah,
So I asked myself, I'm like, well, what does it matter if it's on? I mean, if you need sanitary or if you need, if you need septic and water, well, then you need an acre. But maybe there's a way we can look at that data.
I've heard a few things, and again, I'm not an engineer, I don't work with the county health department, but I know that there is more, I don't want to say leniency, but there is more variation in the minimum lot area required because of soil type and sand.
And that could be.
And then there are also advances in the technology for those systems where not as much area is required for the system or the replacement area. So
I suppose to say, yeah, if it's permittable by the county, then. Yeah, then it works, so I can get behind,
But that's also something that the health department gets very, very fussy about that. When you have sanitary systems next to any water, body of water, be it shoreline, shoreline on the river, shoreline on the lake. You don't want those systems failing. Right. Water gets fast.
So then keep as is. To keep as proposed in the number. R2. Consider smaller lot sizes with utilities. We've heard this from the public at the last meeting. Cindy's also done some great research. She pulled all of the R2 properties and looked at lot sizes to see how many would be impacted if lot area were to change with public water and sewer. It's the Peterson property, and they spoke here, so I don't mind mentioning that name. The other property is that church camp. Presbyterian, yeah. So a smaller lot size would enable more division of land. Also, just consider that means more, potentially maybe more dock density. So again, I'm not one way or the other, I just want y'all to know. Yeah. So, and today you see what it is today and you know that, so I'll leave it up to you.
Well, I'll speak, I guess, first. So, changing R2 to 30,000 square feet is number 2 on my personal priority list. So I would like to support that. Hope we agree.
I think that with the way it's proposed at 65,000 square feet with 100 feet of width would require a lot depth of 650 feet, and it would not be 4-to-1 ratio. So I support the 30,000. That's a fair number. There's not that many properties that have water and sewer in the R2 zone district. So it would in fact just a handful of properties.
Anybody opposed to
I know that we had talked about that, one of our meetings, and we went to 40,000. We didn't go down to 30. I have it as 40.
I have it at 45, but I think go with 40.
So, we talked about that in our last meeting, November 12th. Go to 40. So I would support the 40, not the 30. I wouldn't support the 30. I would support the 40.
I was the one thing that people keep saying you want to maintain the whole consistency of the township of it. We're not densely, a lot of us have moved from dense cities to here. We don't want that change up here. So I think if it's going to 40 is reasonable. Well, I still strongly support 30 because the property we were talking about.
I looked back at the October meeting and I had the same spreadsheet and I showed that we had 40,000 we did not have sewer and water and 30,000 we do have sewer and water. So, I mean, I didn't know why we went back, but I suppose 30 would you think?
And I understand your comment, John, but the ordinance isn't, we don't deal with just one
Right.
one parcel. again, I understand that. So what is as we look at the R2, what is a better number for the entire R2 and not just that one area? And I get it, because wouldn't they not be able to come in for a variance? No, they wouldn't be able to? If we would go to keep it at 40 and because of what they want to do, would they be able to?
I don't think you can request a variance for the minimum lot area for like land division.
Okay.
You could do PUD. I think our PUDs start at 3 acres. I think they have 3 acres though.
Yeah, it's close to 3 acres.
Yeah.
So is there another avenue without looking at just that one area? And I get it, but is that better for the better good of the entire community?
It's only in the areas that have public water and sewer. That would go to 30. And what it would also help control a little bit is your McMansions. Or your ginormous houses that don't really fit the character.
So that it'd be better for all R2?
All our with public water and sewer, which is a handful of properties. What, without utilities?
Were we talking the 65 or the 40?
You have 65 in there, but you have that math problem. When you get minimum width, you just can't get the 4 to 1 ratio.
So what would it have to be?
Oh, 150, like what we have today? Okay.
So what would it be without?
Out, and if we have a lot frontage of 125 times 4 is 60. I have my calculator. Figured out.
So, Dave, that's back to what you were saying earlier about 30 with utilities and 40 without.
What I think.
That's what was in one of the drafts that we had.
Let's support that.
40 without and 30 with?
Yep. At this point, we put the vote.
Well, if we go to 40, we're gonna need to, yeah. Let's have 125.
Yeah.
We think that that's good for R2. I'm gonna have to trust those who are going to do R2s, throughout the township, whether that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think it would also help control those ginormous expansions that really don't fit the rural character of a small town feel.
Right. Everybody agree?
Okay.
30 and 40.
So the next comment is about the same. So I'm just gonna copy it down. The next one, it says, it's back to that R3 comment that we talked about above. When you decided to keep R3. Another person said the R3 should have larger lot sizes, but y'all talked about it. Signs. This could be a quick conversation. Consider allowing the feather signs, so those are the ones that are on a pole. And allow those like we do sandwich board. Temporary. As a temporary, is that okay? Okay.
They're now.
Specialty accommodations allow as a SLU in A1 and A2. Specialty accommodations are, let me just read the definition, because I want to make sure. Specialty accommodation is the non-traditional lodging experience beyond hotel motel. So probably like an auto camp, maybe glamping. So yurts, tree houses, those things. Consider allowing an A1 and A2.
Wasn't there a little comment associated with that they really allow it, we have to have municipal water and sewer. However, you wouldn't have that in the one year.
We wanna,
But either would you have it as a camper.
right,
So if you're allowing them to dump.
Mhm.
They have and or a full hookup, then they're doing something to allow that to happen.
yeah, they would have kind of a community wastewater system.
So, again,
Could that be a P and Z? There's a thing, they came to us and they said, and they bring it, and they say, we're gonna have our own water system and have our own private, sewage system.
We would do site plan review for that, and then with those community water and sewer systems, I believe they do go to the township board to determine whether the township board wants to take on maintenance and replacement responsibility if those were to become defunct or in a state of disrepair, and the entity abandon it or but we can opt out of that.
they would have to do the same thing, because again, campground and recreational vehicle park is allowed in
Yeah.
one issue.
Yeah, so I think that was the point here, why not allow the specialty also? So is that nodding?
Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Kind of tied to, well, related to agriculture.
okay. Townhouses, oh, now we're in the uses section. So a townhouse, so a townhouse can be, they can be rented. They can also be owner occupied. They're typically, shared vertical walls, on their own separate lot, which means separate utilities. I don't think we limit how many can be attached in one building. We might, think three. So, the question, so right now, we don't allow those in I just want to
Yeah,
get,
and R2 and R3.
yeah, and in our
R4.
current ordinance, there, we had something called a duplex, so it's a 2-unit, so it's smaller than a townhouse. And we allow those. And then the townhouse. Quad, it's all by PUD.
Townhouses are owned.
Uh,
We own it, right?
there's no stipulation there. A townhouse can also be rented.
We're talking about.
It's open a house, yeah, so.
Alright.
I'm wondering if we want to kind of go back to that idea of the duplex, the 2-unit. In R2 and R3. And then the townhouse. I don't know. I don't
So-
really know.
Are you saying the duplex only becomes a townhouse if there's 3?
Well,
or-
right now, triplex, so. Yeah, right now, it reads to me that a townhouse is what we used to call a triplex or a quad,
So 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Okay.
And in our current ordinance, those are special uses. for triplex and quads are PUDs. Duplexes were permitted.
Okay, so if you look at table three, and page 3, table 3.30. And the very bottom is residential, right? So we're looking at which one we're gonna allow in, because right now, the townhome dwelling with public is not permitted in the ags, R2, R3, R4, only under special R1, is that correct?
Correct.
And so now, this in particular one is, should it be in R2 and R3 under special? I'm assuming special. Right? If we have a special in one, I don't know why they wouldn't have it under special, right? Yeah, so as I look at our zoning, R2 certainly is our riverside residential.
Yeah, we're a natural river.
And then our, channel R3,
R3 is our lake shore.
Lakeshore. Again,
I think the survey talks about density, not wanting density in those areas.
But I thought the question was in R2 and R3.
R2 is where we have the natural river overlay, and R3 is where we have high risk erosion.
but it says with public water and sewer, does that change things? If they would get those public water and sewer? So have we already put some limits on that? And as we go into those areas, okay, if you get public water and sewer, well, okay, we can allow it now. But without it, you wouldn't. And they have to have the right certain lot size, right? Even to put that up. Because that's gonna be a larger building. Do our lot sizes accommodate that we did?
Would accommodate townhouses? The difference between townhouses and multi-family is townhouses are all side by side, separated by firewall. And multi-families can be on top of one another. So that's the difference between a townhouse and a multi-family. And the lot size for a townhouse is 30,000 square feet. And 3 units per building.
That's a lot of bodies.
So that's why we didn't widen that.
Well, that goes along with the rural feel that we want to keep along the waterfront.
And the seasonal rental.
I would just
Stay with where we're.
yeah. I would support leaving it like we have.
Yes.
Wouldn't mind having to. I know, I always think.
Oh, we got ADU. C3. Consider allowing townhome with water and sewer. I was thinking, yeah, I don't know why, I think we should, we allow mixed use. We allow multifamily to be just compare the two for us, so.
Understand, have it as special,
Um,
dwelling on the public water and sewer, right now it's on the table, I'm looking at table 4 on.
430,
Yeah,
page 4-4.
yes. So that would become a special versus,
Either special or permitted.
maybe special because of what it might be situated next to. Might be worth looking at before giving blanket.
Would we also want to allow the 2-family dwelling in C3? Two family, okay, so just the townhouses, because we are wanting to see like more housing in that area.
And we allow mixed housing, correct?
Yeah.
Three to multifamily also.
It's already in there, already in there.
So townhouse with public water and sewer and C3, going to be S or not? It will. Okay. And then dwelling two family,
Keep it not
keep it,
permitted.
keep it not permitted in C3.
Yeah.
One, two.
And note that we do allow the nursing home. I just want you to know that came up in the public comment. It is allowed. It's a special use.
Now, in regards to state licensed residential facility, would that be something maybe we consider under special?
Sure.
And make it special so that again,
Yeah.
depending, and if that's what was talked about earlier as well.
Yeah.
Is a senior housing or, I don't know if that's what we mean by state licensed residential. Right, so guess I have to look up the definition. So that would be under special as well.
Okay. C3, C2, C1, retail sizes and uses. I just wanted to make sure you all have looked at those, if you have any modifications. I know the Aldi was mentioned and I looked up their typical size. It ranges, but they do go down to 10,000.
I believe that the dollar store that approached in the past was $10, wasn't it? Yeah.
And we don't say grocery store, we just say retail.
So they, our public needs to understand that we're grouping, grouping in.
Yeah, we're not saying like card shop, magazine store, flower shop.
Okay, the question is, that I have is the big box stores, and I know that this township really does not wish to have them to come into this community. But isn't that old ordinance talk about that in C3? If we look at the when we describe C3 in the old ordinance, did we not, was that not also talked about? And so therefore, would that be the retail over 10,000? Right? So would that be under, if we're gonna try to stay with that, would that be considered special?
Is that, I'm looking at our table, is it under grocery or?
Well, I'm just looking at, and the statement of purpose for C3. C3 interchange commercial district is located near the freeway, interchange along the major arterial. It is established to provide areas for specialized sales, service, hospitality services, to cater to highway travelers, and secondarily for large site special approved use such as shopping centers, big box retail stores, and land intensive uses. That is already in our old ordinance. So are we going to try to stay with that, so then therefore special land would be retail to over 10,000, or we really want to preclude that? Are we saying?
I had heard that for rural character, there was a desire to go smaller with sizes. The Ganges ordinance
is
was
25.
shared,
C1.
so.
They did that to keep out.
But that's a C3 jump, John. I'm
No,
not
just
C3.
referencing, yeah, I think it. So.
So I'm just asking that question because it's in the other ordinance and I just raised that.
So a point, or if you want to grow residential capability here in the area, by keeping these places at the very small, we limit the availability of better prices, availability of goods, making people drive further to go to a store where they can get a better price, more selection. So it's, to me, it's not in keeping with the best interests of a lot of the residents. Don't want to have to drive very far to get those important goods.
What's the all do that?
Yeah,
Again,
that's
I'm
the
just-
question is, so we want to push
So
everybody
is
out of South Haven out.
But we.
Is
also
the current
have-
person, sorry, is it's saying, isn't it not, that C3 can be any size? It can be above 10,000?
Our,
It's 10,000 max
Yes, that's what it said.
in our draft.
in the draft, okay. Now that, I think, yeah.
We have a lot of, did y'all read the master plan?
several
There's a
times.
lot of conversation about this push and pull with commercial on the outskirts that can conflict and compromise the downtowns.
Right.
And so I think that I remember that a conversation with the rural character too, that considering the master plan talks about, you know, not permitting the downtown to expand outside of the area presently zoned for downtown commercial. There's,
What's the chart?
well, a good, probably the downtown.
Well, we have two.
Douglas.
Yeah,
Douglas
Douglas.
and
Okay, so you want to be able to make available goods and services that more of them can go into downtown, Dublin, downtown South. People who live here, limited means, have to have availability of goods and services that aren't being provided down.
I'll just review the present commercial zoning of Blue Star south of the city of Douglas interchange should not be expanded, but small areas representing existing commercial establishments at the freeway and M89 interchanges should continue to be recognized. They are, we're keeping them safe. Expanding expanding commercial in these areas will, over time, only detract from more appropriate commercial areas in Saugatuck, the city of the village of Douglas, and along North Blue Star Highway.
Okay, and
I don't
I-
think-
as I look at what we have proposed, is that we're not going to permit, large retail, but we do have a place that they can go, and that's industrial. It is permitted, of general retail sales over 10,000 square feet. of Water to is permitted over 10.
Yeah,
I think.
I have more just to read, if that's okay. Lastly, the area along North Blue Star Highway between Clearbrook Drive and I-196, exit 41, which is presently developed for a variety of land uses, should be encouraged to be mixed-use residential and commercial. So we are putting that residential in, which it's not now by right. Highway service-related commercial should serve the intermediate interchange area. General business uses like drugstores, banks, and hardware stores should be encouraged in the general business area in Saugatuck and the village of Douglas, and not in interchange areas. Allowing general business establishments to spread will increase the number and length of trips for local residents, will require all trips to be by motor vehicle, which causes a corresponding waste of fossil fuels, and it increases the potential for existing businesses in the city and the village to fail, since the critical mass of general business opportunities in a single location is not present.
No, I'm going to retract in regards to speed three, because we do allow those larger retailers to be in this community if they choose with water and sewer, that's in their industrial. Yeah. Okay,
Right.
okay, I retract.
Thank you. I think it's just good to go back. Sorry, I know. All right, rectify why single family are permitted in C1 and C2 and not C3, and that they're also permitted in I1. So I think that we allow in C3 these other like larger format residential, not single family usage. And C2 and C3, we have single family on the corridor still, so we're making sure that those remain a possible use and not non-conforming. And in industrial, we're allowing single family, right?
Right.
Yeah, because of the fact that we don't have utilities there. We've seen people want to do a home with a business. Live work.
I've seen realtors already advertise. Residential and industrial.
Oh, really?
Hopefully they aren't gonna complain like when we go out to the agriculture and right to farm.
Well,
No.
that is the concern, right? Is
Yeah, it is.
people that move into industrial and then somebody builds next door to them a manufacturing plant.
Otherwise they're gonna-
That's the risk. we run.
Why is multifamily not permitted in C3? It is. And R4, because we just talked about that. Okay, water bodies in section 11.11, change words inland lake, make sure pond was raised in the lake. I don't know that this is necessarily a policy. I think that we talked about this last time. That instead of the word water body, we wanted to be consistent and use the term inland lake because it's defined by the state of Michigan. Water access. A resident brought this up. Does the planning commission realize how many docks are permitted with the existing and proposed dock density rules? Gordon, I don't want to call you out. This wasn't your comments, but I know you really have studied this dock ordinance. I think this comment was made when you consider a marina and how many docks could be there in a marina versus if you took the linear feet of water frontage and how many docks are allowed in our current ordinance. So you've probably looked at that, you reviewed that dock density. Is that something that we want to rectify? I mean, we're not changing our dock density provisions, but this commenter thought that's something we want to adjust.
That's what I'm aware of.
I'm just gonna move on from that then. Does the PC realize that a marina and increasing shoreline to make a channel might be more compatible with the river uses than the density of docks that can otherwise be permitted? This is similar to the comment above it. Okay. I think you all have read that and realized that. PUD open space requirement states that 50% of water counts for open space in the PUD. The current ordinance says that, currently, if you have a PUD, you're required to do open space. Right now, anything that's water, like, say your ski lake, 100% of that can count as open space. Currently, our new ordinance says only 50%. It also says 50% of like wetlands. And I know that the PUD's rules in our new book were modeled after the recommendations of the Rural Character Committee. I don't know if you have a strong feeling on this, if we should keep it at the 50% in the new ordinance or allow 100%.
I thought the discussion was that because we were trying to avoid a situation where a developer comes in and says, I want to do a PUD, and he's developing wetland, and just say, I'm not gonna build here, you can't build there anyway, you're not offering it.
Okay. This PUD section, we allow a density bonus in our PUD. I think it's up to 25 or 30% of what you could do by right. You're only eligible for the density bonus if you have water and sewer. This was intentional, because of that survey question, right? Like, we want to have the density where we have the services. So that's why those are linked up. This was something that, some of the development community brought up. We're gonna keep it as a requirement for the bonus. You can do a PUD with well and septic, you just can't get the density bonus. Okay. And then the private road. I wanted to just bring this up, and we've had some conversations internally with Cindy, with Chris Mantles. But this came up too with David, our consultant today. I just want to make sure we're on the right track. When people do land divisions and we only allow a shared drive for 2 parcels. So if you're doing more and you don't have the frontage on the street, the existing street, you often do a private road. There's a concern that if we don't require the road to be built, and or maybe the first coat of asphalt, that those lots can be divided, and the person who divided it will sell them off, and maybe the road is never built by that person who divided them. So if we allow the land division before the road is in, those lots could be sold. We wouldn't allow the building permit until there's a safe passage. And so suddenly now that road construction, it might be on the back of one of those dividers and not the original, or one of those home owners and not the original divider.
Do we have this in our ordinance right now?
We don't. It's been more of like a policy thing. Recently, we've said you've got to do the road. We talked and thought, well, maybe no, you don't have to do the road. We just need the easement.
Okay, so where do you suggest that they be fit into the ordinance?
Oh, in the new, so sorry, it is in the new one.
Which one is that?
There's something familiar about land and then.
Do you think there should be an escrow account with enough money?
Well, that's another option that we talked about.
Or a bond.
A bond, or letter of credit.
Section 7120.
I'm sorry, thank you. Are there concern, maybe we can ask Nick Curcio this too, because can't those bonds or letter of credits expire?
Are they reliable?
Or do they sometimes take a legal action? I don't know.
You require them, you want to renew, you require them to build a road.
Yes.
That way, so that way you don't put down the letter of credit or bond or anything. You want to divide it, you gotta build the road. Well, you have to build the road and put the top coat up. You don't want to put the second coat until all the work is done. So you want to find escrow. That's not an escrow, so that. Other than still bear the burden. Right, at least, because at that point, if the developer takes off, then the residents only have to pay for that second after it's fully developed. You can probably do that by a special. For that area, but yeah, but I don't want to let the developers just sell it wrong. Right. That happened to us. We had to take a special assessment for $60,000. The developer pitched up. I'd like to protect the next people from that. unpleasant.
The question is, if a private road is, because the fact those 4 units on them, who maintains it? For the township, so they're gonna have to figure out those 4, whether it's associated with their deed or whatever, to maintain the road up to a standard.
Yeah.
And the other issue is if you're going to hold the land division approval until a private road is installed, who wants to build a private road when they don't know if they're gonna get their land?
Yeah, right. Chicken and egg.
So I think the escrow is a good, alternative. And if it's an escrow, that does not expire.
So they would deposit the funds with the township.
That path.
You require if, there's a lot split and it has a private road, but that then becomes a neighborhood with the association in place.
Oh, not with a land division, we couldn't require that because you're allowed by right to do land division. I mean, Cindy, if we have to approve a land division. Right? So, so they would be approved. I don't know.
It's just kind of a, what comes first.
Could it be cash, escrow, or the road goes in? I don't know. Is that better than a bond or a letter? of credit?
Cash is always better. That would be deposited in the township.
Would that be okay, Cindy? Like you either build that to the first coat or it's a cash escrow for the construction plus contingency or something?
And plus if you record your easement and your maintenance, agreement with the county register of deeds, that's on record, that's on file. So you shouldn't be surprised if you buy one of those lots that were divided off, that there is going to be maintenance, that's going to be the responsibility.
So what are you proposing add language to the section to deal with that? And exactly where we're. Okay.
It's already in there.
What section?
It's, page 716, 716. You have private and 3. 716. So is it what you've been talking about already there? Or is there something?
There's another section about land division.
Okay, so we're just not talking about land.
Land division is one private street.
There is on page 719, land divisions and building permits.
Yeah,
That one,
yeah,
H. That's on
Yeah.
719.
until the easement is recorded and approved. The private street is approved and this private street is built and certified by the township as compliant. I think Cindy, you brought up a comment saying, what about, I mean, do we want to require it be built? Could we also be okay with an escrow instead? Cash escrow.
So the new one, our new ordinance requires them to flat out build the
It
road.
does, yeah.
Well, that's still better than holding an escrow, because then you're not guessing at how much the road's gonna cost, right? Well, there should be. There should be quotes. There should be quotes associated with cost.
Yeah.
You're gonna divide, somebody's buying that, developer's probably coming in and making the land division, then.
Well, there's 2 phases to the road. There's the road, then there's the finished road. And they're incented to put the road in, because that's how people can visualize going to lots and stuff like that. But currently, there isn't an incentive to finish the road. There's an incentive to take off before you have to do it. So Gordon, would the solution be to have them build the road up to the first code and have them escrow enough to do that.
Exactly. To finish the road.
Escrow to finish the road.
Okay, so require the road built, the first coat, and then we'd accept an escrow with a contingency to finish it, and our township engineer can provide the amount for that escrow.
Township engineer would provide an quotation, estimate.
Yeah, or just verify the estimate.
Okay, verify.
Yeah.
Very good.
We already have the design requirements.
Yeah. Okay, that's it, guys. For my list, for this list, we got it, yeah.
Have you not read all our tables? I mean, in the last draft, there was a couple that were missing. Are they, all our tables going to be reviewed and appropriately updated?
They are, I wanted to let you know there are some things, we also sent you the non-policy spreadsheet. So if there were things in there that you want to bring forward that need to be discussed, now would be the time. Otherwise, we're going to go through and make those that are in the non-policy spreadsheet. There was a spreadsheet in the packet. There were policy items and then items that were non-policy things that staff agreed needed to be changed or that was best practice. Those are gonna be changed. We're not gonna discuss here unless the planning commission wanted to discuss.
And we just did that land division to the private streets. The document,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, so
I didn't wanna just, yeah.
that last one, rectify conditional zoning at auto campus.
Oh, that's on the map.
You
That's on
already
the map.
did that.
I fixed it, yeah.
You're going to add about the dark sky.
Yeah.
Article 9. okay.
Yeah.
But there was a comment in there about fencing.
Okay, yep, we got that,
To fix that in regards to landscape fencing, I mean, I understand where they were talking about trees, to protect the trees, but our fencing isn't about that. So if I put a tree in, I can put a fence around that, I don't take any permit for that.
no. No, these are like, property lines. That's
So I
like-
don't, is there something we need to state in there ordinance, or is that just something that we just don't? There was a comment in
that survey.
yes,
Yeah.
about fencing.
Deer population.
Yes, yeah.
Landscape.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's, is that something that's like, well, they might write people into the fencing, or is it something we need to mention in the fencing?
We'll check that, yeah. I don't think our intent is to limit that type of thing.
Hey, I had a question on, this is just a clarification, I'm sure we discussed it, and I don't remember exactly why, but on table 4-3 on page 4.3. Under the self-storage section, over, we had that, C1 is always gonna be NP. C2 and C3, we talked about special use. And it's changed to not permittable and not permittable for C2 and C3. Is that something that we,
Okay, which line are you having that?
it would be self-storage, so it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, we did, I thought we talked about self-storage and industrial only, not on the commercial board.
I feel like that's how it was before. That's how it worked.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we went back.
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember one, so that doesn't make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have another memory question here on page 5-7. Under C, prohibited uses and activities. We, in October, I had notes in there that we were gonna avoid drilling for natural gas or petroleum, whether for exploration, production. I can't remember why I would have crossed that out.
I don't recall that, but maybe I wasn't at that meeting. I don't know if there was a meeting day for that.
I mean, I don't understand why we would have, unless we thought that it was state regulated. And didn't have it in there. That's what I wondered if we.
So let me add that for our attorney, because our attorney did review this, so their changes aren't in this version. But, we'll just flag it again, to make sure. Um,
Anybody else have any, comments? What needs to take when you want?
I mean, it's looking at something in regards to my specialty, campground. Because our specialty accommodation says where there's water and sewer, does our campground say that?
oh, I see.
And then there's minimum of 5 acres. But our campgrounds don't say that.
Okay, thank you for bringing this back up. Okay, so in section 8.280.
Yep.
You're proposing that D1 be removed.
Yes. Because our campground,
We should treat them the same.
I would think so.
3.28.
Yeah, page 820.
820, and then we go back to the campground on page 86. And we already said it shall be subject to state permitting requirements for campground. So we're really saying that they're one and the same, even though we're calling them.
I know, I met with Dave for 2 hours today, and John and Cindy had some really great comments in a draft and comment notations, and every little thing is not in the matrix that we're just, again, like, oh yeah, we repeated this sentence, or, you know, Cindy caught some things that were just, that were like big policy things. I don't want you to think that we're, but we can give you a copy of that so you can see the changes. Also, Chris Mantles reviewed this and they had some clarification points. Again, nothing that changes the essence of it. They want to make sure they're reviewing like electric charging station, like that. So I just wanted you to be aware of those things. Yeah, I guess. Dave will need time to make all of these adjustments. I know, Jackie, you said you had some other like little edit stuff.
I'm gonna email those right
But you'll,
away.
great, and then,
So then next
Yeah.
meeting, then we'll have packet that we can then recommend.
so the question is, with what we talked about today, would you like to have the public hearing in January? At the meeting on the 16th? That's the third Tuesday.
I have one more minute. Are we happy with the non-conforming use?
We did have comments from Joe about that. Dave said that he and Joe talked through that at the last meeting. Dave has the solution. And he was sorry it wasn't in the November draft, but
Okay,
he was gonna fix
so
that.
we're hopefully we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, clarity there, okay?
Two quick questions. I know we did this an hour and a half ago. I just want to clarify for my notes. With ADUs, did we say that the maximum or minimum size, 600 square feet?
Maximum size for an ADU is 600.
And then in terms of housing, we did set the 600 square foot minimum in all 4 residential districts.
That was the thought, because our goal was to always calibrate the maximum ADU and the minimum house size is the same number.
Okay, so that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Need to be public comment,
Public hearing.
a public hearing. Sorry.
We would receive that draft a week prior to the meeting.
Yeah. And I,
And then that public hearing, if there's still, if you hear the public, there's a guarantee that it goes to the board at that, after that meeting, you have to vote.
yep, you have to vote, you can also vote it with a whole list of changes.
Or postpone because there's too many and, okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
The board does it.
I just want to be clear.
The board gets it, they can vote on changes.
Yeah.
We're getting close.
Okay.
All right. Okay, then we can move on from old business to new business. None. Communications, township board report, please.
Yeah, there's 5 things I want to highlight just because I think they're all pertinent for the plan. We were presented with a draft 5-year parks plan. There's now a 30-day review process. Speak to this too, but I encourage you all to view it. It's on the township website. And then January 10th, the township board meeting, receiving the formal meeting, we'll have a public hearing on this proposed 5-year parks plan. Update on Blue Star Highway roundabout. We were presented with 3 new options by our consulting firm. For the center of the island, the board approved an option to include the already purchased sculpture that is financial support from the CVB. The Township Road Commission is now. Blue Star Corridor intersection study, I think you're all aware of that. It's also a Safe Streets Committee forming and a utility advisory committee. A lot going on. But the study on Blue Star, this is important because I know this has come up here, questions. The study will occur both pre and post construction of the route. Just be in the next few months. The Safe Street Planning Committee is being formed with representatives from the Road Commission, Fire Department, and rep from the Township Board, PC, and we supported that Denise Webster would represent the Planning Commission, and Brenda Marcy, who's here tonight, will represent the Township Board on Safe Streets. In terms of the utility advisory committee, which will be studying capacity issues with the 2 cities as well as the township growth, and township will be represented by Stacy Aldrich. And here's some really good news. The Natural Resources Trust Fund grant, which we've applied for, I think, 3 times. This time we got it. We were awarded $300,000 for bike trail. 32 of the 99 applicants received the trust fund grant. Kudos to staff. He's not even listening. Anyway, we're very proud. And I do want to mention Army Corps of Engineers. We had I guess it was last week. It's almost been 2 years since they've done a consulting parties web phone meeting. But this happened on December 11th. I am one of the representatives of the township, so I attended it by WebEx. This time around, the developer did not participate. They asked to not be considered a consulting party. The Army Corps said they couldn't do that because they are. And so this was mostly discussion with the private group representatives, preservation state offices, and private groups, including the Coastal Alliance. There are a lot of concerns over monitoring of future work on the property and need for more detailed information. Asking for from the machine. But it's also sort of, I think they've slowed down with the Army Corps. The lead person from the Army Corps just stepped into this role because the woman who's been lead for at least 6-7 years that I'm aware is out on maternity. And there were some new people with the State Historical Preservation Office. So there's a learning curve that needs to be caught up. Some of them didn't even realize that the marina application and issues been going on since like 2007, back to when so that's kind of what was hashed out. Don't know when the next meeting will be, but there's still not making a decision. That's it. Unless you have a question.
Staff updates. There's some, the planning, and zoning area, there's a Zoom meeting or a Zoom conference of non-conformity, as a matter of fact, in March. If I want to attend, be part of that, who do I talk to?
I mean, you can do it.
$85.
Yeah. We've got training money.
Okay.
So, let Daniel and Lori.
So,
Yeah, and Morgan, we haven't, I don't think we've any training money.
Oh, no, we have the trainer club.
yeah.
That, but I mean, individual, we do have money for it.
Okay, so if I was interested in doing that, put it on my Zoom, Dr. Morgan? Okay, got it.
You can write
Thank you.
I know we're going to the second public comment. Just want to also mention there was written correspondence that you got related to the trees ordinance that wasn't in the table. I didn't hear anyone speak up thinking we needed to adjust that.
Is it really that much different than what's already been,
There's some additional trees, and then if you want to remove them, there's a process to follow. There's a survey.
So, that comment, is there anything that we really need to be concerned with? We need to look at that conservation or
Maybe just review it when you get your next draft, but it's been the same for all the drafts that we've had. And then the last one, the comment from Mr. Harrison, Dale Harrison, about the in no event shall a canal or channel be excavated and how that language has changed. I think we're just gonna refer that to the township attorney team. So
I think we have, but we can do
I
it.
think we
can
have,
ask them that.
we get asked
It'll
again.
just come up.
But-
Yeah, and I think that comment is in there, that paragraph is in there. In regards to,
We changed the wording and then new one.
and whether the wording is strong enough. That,
I think the concern from the person here was that we shouldn't change the wording at all because there is this pending litigation. But our attorney has reviewed it, but I think we'll just maybe double check.
Well, again, that's coming under the old ordinance, so that we would look at that old ordinance anyway. Right? Whether we change something. Maybe not. But- Okay, I'm just,
I don't want to give legal opinion on all of that, but that one.
And the change is not retroactive.
The
It's
comments
just
are-
they came up again.
Okay. Second public comment.
All right, yep. Going to second public comment period, is there anyone that would like to? Anyone? So I'm wondering, ask this question. Anyway. Yeah, this is page 100.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So now I want to. Right now, the ordinance. Right now, by right, property owners don't get adjacent property owners don't get a notice. If you're doing something where you require a public hearing, then that adjacent property owner will be aware of that development because they've got a public hearing. But if you have a commercial, particularly commercial industrial by right application that's been submitted by your neighbor, it doesn't require a hearing. You may not know what's happening until they break ground. And then sometimes it's too late. I personally know of 2 instances where if the property owner didn't know what was happening next door, they wouldn't have been able to bring up a few of these important items to the planning commission to have it addressed in the approval process. So that's the reason we have it in the ordinance today. I think it's a very simple item to retain. In fact, we even have language in your ordinance, as they pointed out, that discretion of the township, you may adapt and noticing procedures above and beyond the enabling that. Consider. I get on the other one is like the R3, I'm assuming the statement 2030 on here. I'd ask you to reconsider that again. That's a limited amount of area on the R3 district. We cut it back years ago and made that notation. It's way back, going almost first. So we limited the R3, that area along Glacier. It's almost totally developed. There's very little development. Going to be turning those 20,000 square foot lots into non-conforming lots. You eliminated, in terms of density concern, you've already taken out 2, 3, 4-plex units out of there that were permitted before. So you're going to cut down on all that additional density within the R3 that you have. The question of septic, as noted, it's a question of the county health department. If your property allows a septic, it allows a septic. I mean, why should we be judging when a septic and when a house can go in because of concern about septic feasibility? So I think the Down County Health Department handles that. And with regard to high-risk erosion, that's not an issue. The state controls high-risk erosion. They have setbacks. So I don't know how going from a 20 to a 30 has any effect high-risk erosion in the R3 district. So I guess in summary, looking at all of those, I frankly don't think you should make a change, shouldn't touch it. There's been no problems with septic or sewer in the Lake Michigan, and the health department covers it. My other question was, they didn't hear that discussion, it's R4, which is the area between R3 and Blue Star Highway.
originally in your first drafts, you had the density there, at 40,000 square feet. And then at the last meeting, it was decided to go back to the 6,500. 40,000. I want to point out about the R4 is, the master plan locates that on their master future. And they describe it as a medium to high density, single and multi-family residential. High density, medium, 40,000 square feet certainly would seem to me. Also, the master plan says where's the best area for concentrations of housing. It's northeast of the township and southwest of Douglas. That's exactly where the R4 is. And the idea that it should be intended to be, the protection statement in your R4 is protecting the shoreline, critical dunes, natural resources. The R4 district doesn't have it. None of it's in the critical, except for the couple parcels in the corner up by the patents. There's R4 is not in the critical. It's not high risk zone. It's not on the water. So all the protections that you've got listed for R4 really don't apply to the property. And so that shouldn't be a reason to have a large square footage requirement. And again, that's an area where you also, because your density concern, you've taken out the 3, 4 family dwelling, and you involve 5 to 6 family from R4. So you're gonna cut down density there. The other comment was attainable housing. The larger the lot, the less likely you're gonna have attainable housing. Larger lot, more cost, bigger building, so on as well if you'd like to. And again, in terms of septic, that's an issue for the health department. If you can get the septic permit, they're the expert, state and county. If your property is vacant for the septic system, you know, you can take it. If you can't, then you won't be able to develop. And it just seems like a more reasonable way to proceed so you don't find yourself acting in place of the agencies that really have the knowledge to do that. With regard to planned unit developments, the item I had noted was in this ordinance, you're laying out a reference to when you're talking about PUDs, protection of wetlands, just referring to them as wetlands. The existing ordinance uses the word regulate. And for a reason, you have the state, just like they regulate the critical zones, they tell you where the critical zones are and how to do it. The high risk erosion area, you're worried about erosion, the state lays that out, defines it, so what you can do about it. Same thing with the wetlands. They're defined as regulated. They define what wetlands should be regulated. So it seems to me if you're going to go beyond the regulated wetlands, you're going further than you. And I think for the non-conforming uses that you brought up, yeah, I did have a comment with you afterwards, only at the weekend acknowledged there could be better language, clarify particularly the difference between the two types of non-conforming uses and the ability to rebuild after the destruction. So most of those items are sort of along the lines of, as I say in my note, striking that balance between putting preserve character and make it look great and not do the wrong thing. But on the other hand, balancing that with property owners that have property, that have expectations to develop it and move forward. You know, so we have property 40, 50 years. We've been here 70. So it's kind of hard to see it change gears, and when everybody's going to give them really good of the order, so to speak, the township. But some of this seems to go a little beyond some cases considerably. So I ask you to reconsider the notes in the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and at this point, is there a second? All those in favor? Thank you, everyone.